But could Baruch, the son of Neriah, have been more than a mere scribe? Could he also have written the book of Deuteronomy? His work probably speaks for itself. Many passages of text that he wrote for Jeremiah are strikingly similar to words used in Deuteronomy. Perhaps the same author may have had a hand in the writing of both books. If so, archaeology has uncovered an artifact that may have finally brought us into direct contact with one of the earliest authors of the Bible.
We, in recent years, recovered a clay seal that is now in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, which is stamped in a script that we do identify as 7th century Hebrew script, late 7th, early 6th century Hebrew script, and the name in that seal is Baruch, son of Neriah, the scribe. If it's true that Baruch is our Deuteronomistic historian, what that means is when you look at that seal, you are looking at nothing less than the autograph of one of the authors of the Bible.
The tangled web of mystery surrounding the writing of the 5 books of Moses may one day be completely untwined, but a loose thread remains. Who was it who gathered the original manuscripts together? In the course of writing a book, any book, a lengthy process of editing and alteration is involved. In our search, it may not just be a question of who wrote the Bible, but of who rewrote it.
People usually talk simply about this as 4 sources, as if there were only 4 writers, and that's misleading, because even if we count those as only 4 writers, there are still key editors in the stages of this, and editors are as important as authors in the process.
If there was an editor, who was he? To pick up the strands, we must return to the southern kingdom of Judah, to the days when, under a new king, Jehoiakim, the people had retrogressed once again to worshiping idols. A prophet by the name of Jeremiah has now become one of the most outspoken critics of the weakening moral fiber of the people, and he foretells their fate.
Ye have done worse than your fathers. Behold, ye walk every one after the imagination of his evil heart. Therefore will I cast you out of this land, into a land that ye know not, neither ye nor your fathers. Jeremiah 16:11.
A daunting prophecy. In 586 before the Common Era, it comes true. From Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar's armies surged down into Judah and lay siege to Jerusalem. So begins more than a century of bitter exile for the people of Israel in Babylon. But eventually, even mighty Babylon falls to a mightier power. The conquering armies of Cyrus the Great absorb Babylon into the Persian Empire. But Cyrus is conciliatory toward the exiled Jews. He issues his now legendary Edict of Restoration, allowing the people of Israel to return to Jerusalem and restore their temple and their faith. It is a derelict homeland to which the people return. Much of their religious tradition has been eroded during the long years of exile. Their faith is at a threateningly low ebb. According to some scholars, it is time for the great redactor, the final editor of the books of Moses, to enter the scene and leave his mark. In Jerusalem, a party of exiled Jews returns from Babylon under the leadership of a man called Ezra, a scribe. He sees the spiritual weakness of the people and resolves to reintroduce them to the ancient religion of Moses. They have not been exposed to the Hebrew laws for almost a century. So Ezra calls for a mass public gathering in the city.
And Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, and he read therein from the morning until midday, before the men and the women and those who could understand. And the ears of all the people were attentive unto the book of the law. Nehemiah 8:2.
Was Ezra history's elusive editor? Perhaps under his guidance, various religious texts were combined and read together for the first time, forevermore to be consolidated as the 5 books of Moses. The compilation of the texts more than 2,500 years ago was one of the most significant events in a long history of persecution and conflict for the Jews. In the ensuing centuries, they would suffer occupation, defeat, and destruction on an unprecedented scale. But the essence of their religious identity would forever be enshrined in the anthology known as the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. As Orthodox tradition has it, the 5 books of Moses contain the divine words of God, though written in the hand of man. The books that follow differ fundamentally from them. The rest of the Hebrew Bible is generally perceived to be a series of historical documents, a chronology of a people written by many authors. So our search for authorship must now come from another perspective, posing a different set of questions. Beginning with Joshua, there are 34 more separate texts in the Old Testament, culminating with Malachi. Each one certainly has its own history, its own lineage, its own writer. But in most cases, little is known about them.
We know, for example, that David wrote a number of the Psalms. We know that the tradition claims that Solomon wrote Proverbs and Song of Songs and Ecclesiastes. In fact, the rabbis say that when Solomon was young, he wrote Song of Songs. When he was in middle age, he wrote Proverbs. And when he was old, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes.
O princess daughter, the joints of thy thighs are like jewels, the work of the hands of a cunning workman. Thy navel is like a round goblet. Thy belly is like a heap of wheat, set about with lilies. Thy 2 breasts are like 2 young roes that are twins. Song of Solomon 7:1.
The 2 books believed to have been written by Samuel were once part of a text that included the books of Kings 1 and 2. Some scholars believe they were the work of Baruch, son of Neriah the scribe, the same author who may have written Deuteronomy. Whoever wrote them, they were probably compiled about 900 years before the birth of Christ.
We know whoever wrote the book of Samuel was a historian, and whoever wrote Chronicles was probably a court historian of the house of David, but we don't know his name, which is one thing actually that continues throughout Jewish history. Most books are known not by the name of the author, but authors are known by the name of the book. That is, in Jewish history, you call an author frequently by the name of his book, as if you would call Shakespeare Hamlet.
What sort of people were the writers of the Old Testament? Prominent or unknown? Rich or poor? The prophet Amos was a humble shepherd and woodsman who lived in the northern kingdom of Israel after 750 BCE. He wrote of the excesses and indulgences of the aristocracy of the time.
I will not turn away the punishment